Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, here's Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming at you as we have reached the midway point on this fine Wednesday. Glad to have you along, no matter where or how you're listening, whether it's on one of our great radio station affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call in Evansville, or in the region on the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, WJOB, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it locked where you got it throughout the day and throughout your travels for the best in sports programming. And if you're following along on social media, we thank you. Go ahead and hit the subscribe and notifications button so you never miss a thing. Looking forward to another fun day. Dylan Sinn should join us. Kyle Neddenriep, Zach Browning from the Hoosier.com, and Doug Bucshon from the Illinois on 3 site will get the perspective from the Illini camp as we're heading to a Big Ten showdown this weekend, a top 10 matchup with number 9 Illinois, number 19 Indiana. One of the best games on the schedule for this weekend. Yes, it should be. But you know what? Someone asked in the presser the other day, is it better to not have all that stuff around? And Kurt Signetti, just said, I don't pay attention to it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, the Fever got a win last night. Not only did they get a win, I saw that, I saw the game, and I'm just amazed. They have 6 players out, including 2 stars, and they are still winning. They won by 20, 17, actually, I think, but they were up by 20 at one point. And I'm like, how is that possible? That seems amazing to me, and I would be a little embarrassed if I was getting beat by a team that had their number 1 star out and another. Man. But congratulations as they roll on in the playoffs. I saw a stat that couldn't have seemed real, but the first playoff since 2015 for the Fever. That seems a little excessive in years gone by. How's you've made it to the halfway point of the week. How you doing? How's your week been? Jason asking about Van Horst, running back at Indiana. Well, we'll dig into that. You can never be so sure, man. In this day and age, players have all the power, it seems, of sorts. And they do what is best for them. So I don't know. We'll have to pull into that. I had not noticed. But I'm sure there's a story. And we'll dig into it. Dylan Sinn will join us first. And we'll talk about this weekend's game, but also Purdue and the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. And we'll get Dylan's take on Well, I know that the Fighting Irish are not done because it's Notre Dame, even though they already have 2 losses. They have to play USC, and that's probably the toughest game remaining on their schedule. I would have to surmise to say, and partly USC is better than people are giving them credit for. They just got voted into the top 25 of the AP poll at the last spot. But I'm telling you, USC is better than people think. Scott says hello. He's got his 2 tickets for the Illinois game last night for him and his son, who is 16, and it's his first Indiana football game experience. Well, buddy, you picked a good one. It will be an electric atmosphere, tailgating all day long because it's a 7:30 game. Holy moly. How many people will not make it into the game because of the all-day tailgating? There's that. There is that. So it's going to, now the slight chance of rain on Saturday, but I think it's, we'll see if that has changed. It was a low percent anyway. Now it's 8% with a high of 86. So about that time of the evening, it'll be perfect. It will be perfect. Yeah, the showers have kind of gone away right now. We'll see. I think it should be great. It's going to be too good of a day. And I'm telling you, this is the biggest home game, at least for Indiana, since 1967. And it's just going to be a great place to be. I don't care who you're a fan of, actually. Be interesting to see how many Illini fans were able to get in. Russell points out that Nebraska will have USC ranked at home and then Penn State. At Penn State, in between, they should win those games if the cracks are out of the feather. What? If the Crocs are out and the feathers are ruffled. Huh. All right. But Kurt Cignetti is going to need to have the kind of audience that a home crowd supplies. It'll be interesting to see how loud Memorial Stadium can get, because this will be an opportunity to do just that. To exercise those vocal cords. A fun week. It should just be a fun weekend in college football, as a matter of fact, because you're really getting more conference games. Iowa, of all teams, starts things off with a Friday game. Yeah, I'm sure that didn't go. No, they're at Rutgers, though. That's at Rutgers. Iowa's offense, not what I thought it was going to be, man. It's still freaking Kirk Ferentz, Iowa. This has got to be his last year. I think that it's time for Iowa to make a change. They've got the golden standard there with Kirk Ferentz, who's been there forever. I get it. He just became the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten. But it's time for a change. Hey, let's take our first break. Dylan Sinn will join us. We'll talk about Indiana, Purdue, and the Fighting Irish, and more when we return. from these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along, and just as happy to have Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joining us. How's it going, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, as always, Jim.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Big doings coming up this weekend as conference play, although there's been a few games, but it really kicks into gear this week for most teams. Washington is playing Washington State, but most are conference games now. And Indiana opening up their conference season with Illinois. Purdue has already done so with the game last week, and they switched to their non-con game with Notre Dame this weekend. So that'll be in South Bend, no less. But so that covers Purdue and Notre Dame right there. Purdue has I've got to tell you, man, I'm very impressed with what Barry Odom has done. It's not Kurt Cignetti-esque, but it's not bad either. Purdue may have looked worse than Indiana looked in their final year under former coach Tom Allen. Purdue was like a lost ball in high weeds, man. And that's a pretty nice turnaround, but I mean, you can do that in these days, but I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Indiana was at least competitive in their last year under Tom Allen. Purdue lost 5 games by 35 points last year. It just wasn't really particularly close in most of their games. And they've come in this year. And I mean, Barry Odom brought in more than 80 new players. Like we've talked about it at this point. He has he loaded up with guys from the portal. And the thing with him is that unlike Kurt Cignetti, he didn't have as many guys who he could bring with him from his former team with eligibility left. Like he had some, obviously. He brought some players from UNLV. And some of them are very good, especially a couple of linebackers for Purdue. But for the most part, it's guys he went out and got from elsewhere, guys he knew when he was the defensive coordinator at Arkansas, or guys he recruited at his previous stops. And so he's done a really good job of putting a roster together and building a culture right away. I don't think they're going to win a ton of games in Big Ten play, but they could win 1 or 2, which I think would be a huge step up for them after going 0-9 last year. And they are not, I believe, anywhere close to the worst team in this league right now. So that's all you wanted from Barry Odom in year one. And maybe if you pull off a big upset here along the way, you feel even better about yourself. But I think he's already pretty much exceeded expectations. If you get maybe 1 conference win, you feel fantastic about the way this season has gone. He's done a really good job of creating a culture there basically from scratch.
Absolutely, and they'll at least maintain hopes for bowl eligibility at least for a while. But that could stagger throughout the season. With let's see, we're at their 2-1 now, so there's some teams in the Big Ten that they can knock off and make that happen. But I see a scenario where they could be playing Indiana at the end of the year with bowl eligibility on the line. That would be that would put some intrigue.
Yeah, especially after they lost so badly last year in Bloomington. The Indiana has to go back to West Lafayette this year. I think that Barry Odom will have some stuff up his sleeve for that game. I think he's talked a lot about kind of coaching for the Purdue fan base and the Purdue kind of family. And so he's talked a lot this week about how much the Notre Dame game means, because that is a rivalry. It's a game that was played for a very long time. They haven't played as much recently, but it was a game that was played for a very long time. And I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say about Indiana when those two teams play. He already had some comments kind of obliquely about Chris Kennedy and the scheduling in the offseason. So it's one of those things where he cared. He has made a point to really care about everything that makes Purdue, and obviously beating Indiana is a huge part of that. And I think he is going to take that even though he wasn't part of it, he is going to take that loss last year personally, and he's going to make sure his team takes it personally. I think you're going to see a really fired up team coming into West Lafayette for that final game, especially if there are kind of playoff hopes on the line for Indiana in that game. So yeah, I would not be surprised at all if he has some really fun stuff up his sleeve for that game, especially for a coach like him who we've seen at their practices. They work on special teams as much as anyone in the country. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him pull out a fake punt early in that game, just as maybe kind of a little bit of a get back after Cignetti ran one last year for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, unfortunately, this weekend though they're running into a pissed off Notre Dame team because they're already 0-2, and I don't say a lot of doubts about them making the college football playoff because they can just point to their chest and say, "Yeah, but we're Notre Dame. Rules are out the window." They're going to have some games that they have to get by this year, but their schedule is not very daunting the rest of the way, other than there's a USC game. I'd have to look at their schedule, but other than the game with USC off the top of my mind that I can recall.
They play Arkansas. They play Arkansas on the road in a couple of weeks. Arkansas looks a lot better than people thought they were going to be, and so they do have that. And USC, so
Pitt's been better.
Yeah. Yep. So there's some tough games on the schedule. I do think that if they go 10-2, they'll probably be in. I mean, it would be a pretty similar resume to what USC or to what Ohio State had last year when they went 10-2. They lost some games they shouldn't. They lost to a good team. They lost to Michigan, and there wasn't really any doubt that they would be in the playoff. And in fact, they got a home game. I think Notre Dame's schedule probably won't be as good. So they'll probably be a 9 or 10 seed if they make the playoff or if they go 10-2. I just don't think they're going 10-2 right now. I think their defense is it's rough right now. They lost 2 All-Americans on the defensive line and have really struggled to replace them. Haven't been able to get much pressure up the middle like they have the last couple of seasons. And so they had a defense that last year was number 1 in the country in opponent passer rating, and this year is, I believe, 88th in that stat. It's really poor for them right now. They are. Texas A&M in that, especially in the second quarter of that game on Saturday, marched right up and down the field on them, and it really wasn't even like they were breaking a sweat. And especially in the first half, and so it is one of those things where it can be fixed. We've seen Notre Dame defenses in the recent past struggle at the start of the season and get much better as the season went on. I've been trying to tell people. Remember Marcus Freeman, his first year as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, they were bad to start that year, just flat out bad. And they happened to play a bad Florida State team in Toledo in their first 2 games and squeaked by. And as the season went on, they got much better. But this year they didn't have that luxury. And so they got exposed immediately. And now they have to kind of claw their way out. I think there's probably at least 1 or 2 more losses on the schedule for them. And it's possible that they have a dramatic turnaround. If they do go 10-2, I do think they get in, and probably deservedly so. But I think that's a long, long way off right now. I need to see them beat Purdue on Saturday first, which I don't think is totally a given, considering where Notre Dame's weaknesses are and where Purdue's strengths are. Purdue can beat you down the field a little bit. Armand Branch and Nitro Tuggle, two of their better receivers, are really, really good at getting open down the field. And if Purdue is their best corner, Leonard Moore, maybe the best corner in the country, is questionable in that game. And if he's out, it's going to be a real struggle for them to cover both those guys. It really is. And there are going to be some shots available for Purdue. If they hit one or two early in the game, you start to get into a game state with Notre Dame that you don't want to be in. And so I am not taking that win on Saturday as a given for Notre Dame. Absolutely.
Well, and that's very interesting because it goes more with the turnaround that Barry Odom has done for the folks in West Lafayette. Purdue was so bad last year. I didn't see this being a possibility this year, but to bring in that many players without having brought a bunch with you, that was a yeoman's effort, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, they rebuilt basically every position. And again, there were some guys that he brought from UNLV, like there are a couple starters on the offensive line, there are a couple of linebackers, but there's corner Tony Grimes, who's one of their better defensive players, is a UNLV guy, but it's not nearly to the same level as what Kurt Snetti brought from James Madison. There are guys from all over the country on that roster, and I mean, their quarterback is a guy who was with them last year, transferred in the spring, and then transferred back at the end of spring practice. And so it's kind of a representation of how they put this together with gum and duct tape, and it's working. They weren't going to win that game against USC. USC was just too talented in that game, but it was not any kind of blowout. Like, the final score, I think, is not quite indicative. It's 33-17 was the final. I think it was closer than that. Purdue turned the ball over 3 times. USC scored 17 points off those turnovers, and the turnovers were kind of fluky, frankly. It wasn't like, except for the last one in the red zone, but Purdue was driving in the red zone with 5 minutes left with a chance to make that a 1-score game against a team that I think is pretty good. And the computers have all looked like USC came into that game 5th in the country on ESPN's like Football Power Index. So it was a really impressive performance by Purdue, I thought. Their run defense might be outright good. USC was averaging like 8.5 yards a carry coming into that game, and Purdue held them to 170 on 40 carries. So pretty impressive work from a Purdue team playing its first game against a high-level opponent. I think they're going to have something for Notre Dame on Saturday. Last year they lost to Notre Dame 66-7. I don't think that's going to happen again this year.
Second biggest, at the time, the biggest defeat in Purdue history until later that year, season when they would play Indiana. And I'm sure Barry Odom, even though he wasn't there as a coach, he's going to remember both of those scores.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, he has made a real effort to be part of the Purdue kind of family and really enmesh himself in the Purdue culture. And so Purdue took that personally last year, both of those games. They really did. They were like, it's part of the reason that Ryan Walters got fired. It wasn't so much that they went 1-11, they lost those games. It's that they were so non-competitive that they didn't belong on the same field. And I think Barry Odom knows that people took that personally within the Purdue kind of fan base and within the Purdue kind of orbit. And he wants to have something for Notre Dame, and especially at the end of the season for Indiana. So I'm really interested to see that as the season goes on and what he's able to come up with. I think, again, they really focus a lot on special teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they try something tricky early in the game against Notre Dame just to kind of set the tone, because Notre Dame is going to come after them. They blocked a punt against Texas A&M on Saturday for a touchdown. And so if Purdue does do something tricky, Notre Dame is going to be really aggressive. And so one way to get them out of that aggression is to try something like a fake punt or something similar. I think Barry Odom is going to have something up his sleeve for that. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I wouldn't be surprised if Purdue takes an early lead in that game just from something they've schemed up. And so then if you're Notre Dame, now you're 0-2 and you're behind against Purdue. Can you dig yourself out of that? And I'm interested to see how Notre Dame does, because their culture has been really good over the last several years. They've had a very tight-knit team, and they got off the mat in both of their first 2 games, but it wasn't enough. Can they do that a third time? And I'm interested to see if that ends up being possible.
And who's been the biggest surprise to you this year? For me, it's been I guess it shouldn't be a surprise because the expectations are always there. But right now, USC seems like they have gotten things turned around. We'll see as the season progresses. Rudy thinks they're overrated, and I'm like, they're ranked 25th. I don't know how they're overrated, but their offense is very prolific, and it is going to continue to be that way. It'll be interesting to see that USC Notre Dame game later on, but I think that USC is kind of gotten things turned around. We already knew what the expectations were for Illinois and for Indiana and the other teams that are above them, but right now it looks like USC is kind of trying to butt up into that bottom group of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I think you could say very similar things about Nebraska. They're 3-0. They've kind of done exactly what USC has done before the Purdue game, which is beat up on a couple of bad teams. Like, it's one of those things. They're kind of in the same position as Indiana. Their resume is very similar at this point. Frankly, you played some teams that you should beat, but you not only beat them, you erased them, all 3 of them, and that's what Nebraska has done. And that's not something they've always done over the last couple of years. There have been some scares for them in non-conference play against teams that should be inferior. And this year they had none of that. And so they get Michigan this week, Michigan team that lost to Oklahoma, but then turned around and played its best game basically in since 2023 against Central Michigan. They just destroyed them in that game, and Bryce Underwood, their quarterback, looked really good. So I'm interested to see how that goes against Nebraska on Saturday. Michigan is favored, but not by much. And so if Nebraska wins that game, suddenly you're looking at a Nebraska team that could be, and will have some opportunities to really make their mark as Matt Rule continues into his 3rd year here, which is typically when he gets things rolling. Like, this is not really a surprise in terms of the way he builds his programs. He takes a couple of years to really get going, and when he does, it's going. And so I think Nebraska might be on the cusp of something pretty special this year as well.
Yeah, they're going to certainly have their opportunity. But you mentioned they've got the Wolverines coming in this weekend, so that's going to be a test to see where Nebraska is going, and a lot of pressure on out there on Matt Rule, because this is the time to get moving, and this is a home game. So they kind of, I don't think Michigan is quite there yet, to be honest with you. I know that they're a good and tough team. But the fact of having a freshman quarterback is going to usually bring its problems. And I look at, someone mentioned Texas is the most overrated team, and I agree with that. I think Arch Manning's the most overrated quarterback. He's still listed on some Heisman polls, and I'm like, for what? The best thing he's done is stood up off the bench, man. He hasn't done anything other than walk out with a Manning name on his back. That's it. Texas hasn't done jack squat. It's all, they are just overrated, period. As where USC, their offensive numbers back them up. Right. And I don't think there's any overrated going on with USC. They're not rated that high. They're just now cracking the top 25 and getting in at 25. So they're going to have to climb the ladder throughout this season, but we've seen how that can be done. They'll have plenty of opportunities with their schedule that includes Notre Dame on it, as well as the Big Ten. So Justin says, watch out as Mendoza is going to start showing up as a Heisman candidate. Well, I thought that he might early on with the buzz that he came in with, but he's nowhere to be found right now. And
he will be if he plays well this week. He will be. Exactly. The kind of hype train for that will start if he throws for 275 and 2 touchdowns without an interception this week and they win. He'll be up there. Like, you'll start seeing his name. But I mean, he has to do it against someone good, and that's not a knock on Indiana or Indiana's schedule. It's the reality of it. In order to be a Heisman contender, you have to do something against a high-level team. Like the poll that I saw yesterday has Carson Beck at the top right now, which, like, I don't think he's going to win the Heisman, but Miami has probably the best resume of anyone in the country right now because they've beaten 2 teams that most people think are pretty good. And John Mateer is up there because Oklahoma beat Michigan. I think John Mateer is awesome, but it's one of those things where it's so hard to do this early in the season because like you're putting up numbers against you're putting up numbers against bad teams, and you're trying to parse, okay, this team was ranked 75th and this team was ranked 78th.
And I don't care.
Hard, right?
Here's the thing. I don't care if their team doesn't always perform. That doesn't fall on the quarterback. What if your defense gave up 28 points?
Sure.
What the hell are you supposed to do there? That's one thing that's always driven me insane, how the Heisman has now become an award for the best player on the best team. Well, it's not supposed to have anything to do with it. Your team. Now, offensively, yeah, there's guidance there and leadership, and I get that to a degree, but you can't lay everything on there. So we'll see how that goes.
That's why I thought Genty should have won last year, the Boise State running back, not because Boise State was good, because he was the only thing they had going. You took him off that team, they would have been 6-6. Their offense was hand the ball to Ashton Genty and hope he does something fun, and he frequently did 2,600 yards or whatever it was. Like, I understood the pick of Travis Hunter. And honestly, it was a good pick from the Heisman voters of like, hey, this guy, they went 9-4, but he was still awesome. He played both ways and was basically an All-American at 2 positions. Like, I totally understood the pick, but man, Boise State would have been nothing without Ashton Genty, and we're seeing that this year where they went out there in their first game without Ashton Genty and lost to a USF team 31-7. It was not particularly close. So. That was a great pick last year. Was one of those things where, he was the offense. He was the guy. And that's why I wanted him to win last year. That's who I voted for as a voter.
You know what? And I appreciate that because it reminds me back when Anthony Thompson should have won the Heisman when he was in his last season at Indiana back in 89. And Indiana misses a chip shot field goal against Purdue at the end of the season to end the year with a losing record. There goes the Heisman Trophy because he ended up losing it in a very close race with Houston's quarterback Ware.
Yeah, Andre Ware.
Yeah, and because that's a perfect example to me. Anthony Thompson did great things against great teams off of a crap team. Yeah. He should have gotten more credit, bonus points for doing. You're like, wait a minute. You can accomplish this on a crap team, but you get no credit for that. It doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is, right?
That's right. Antoine Randall kind of in the same boat where he was just doing crazy things for a team that was pretty mediocre. But in terms of Anthony Thompson, he was actually kind of in the news a little bit this week. Omar Cooper Jr. Won Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week for Indiana with his 4 touchdown receptions. He scored 24 points. 6 times 4 is 24. He scored 24 points in that game. That was the most for Indiana in a game since Anthony Thompson had 32 in a game in 1989. So that's pretty impressive. It's been a long time since anyone had that kind of performance in a game for Indiana, and Omar Cooper did. Against Indiana State. They just had no answer for him. It was really fun to watch in that game.
Anthony Thompson making his rounds as well. He was on a visit with IU basketball last weekend also. FYI. Just kidding. Different Anthony Thompson, no relation there. But
I feel like you have to show him like the Anthony Thompson, like highlights of Anthony Thompson while he's there, right? It's like, hey, this guy's already young. You're already here.
He might try to wear number 32.
I'm just saying. I feel like that'd be a good idea for any Indiana people who put together those recruiting visits. If you're listening, these are free ideas.
And there you go. And Anthony Thompson was a bad man in college. A bad man. I remember my roommate introducing me to him one day. He was in the weight room, and I remember shaking hands. And I tell this story the same way every time. It was literally like shaking hands with a statue. His hand was like marble, just a rock. And I'm like, oh my. So, yeah. Hey, we've got Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. Glad to have you along as well. We've got plenty more, and we'll be back with it after these messages from Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. You've reached the midway point. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette also. Kyle Schwarber's run at MVP took a hit last night, Dylan, as Shohei Ohtani became the first Major League Baseball player to record 50 home runs and 50 strikeouts in a single season. That's going to be tough to beat, man. He in a game last night in which he got his 50th home run, he also pitched a few scoreless innings.
5 no-hit innings. No-hit innings.
That's right. No-hit innings. That's right.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, that kind of bam. I think he may have just put the stamp on it. It's just amazing. But I really would love to see Kyle Schwarber win that thing. But you can't. It's just like, okay, I give. It's kind of hard to top what Ohtani is doing.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. He's fantastic, especially at he did the thing last year where he became the first 50-50 guy in homers and stolen bases, and now he's the first 50-50 homers and strikeouts. It's incredibly impressive. He is one of the best ever, despite playing only like 8 seasons in the big leagues at this point. Man, and the crazy part is like he's getting back into shape as a pitcher just as the playoffs are looming here, and he could be a difference maker for them on the mound, a guy they haven't really had consistently throughout the season as he's recovered from his Tommy John surgery, and then some setbacks that he had. But if he's going to be a high-level pitcher for them in the playoffs, that changes the whole picture of what the National League could look like in the postseason. So I'm interested to see that, because I do think the Phillies and the Dodgers are the 2 best teams in the NL. I know the Brewers have the best record. I think the Phillies and Dodgers are probably better teams. And so I'm interested to see how that goes in the postseason, because if he is going to be like an ace level pitcher, which he sure as heck looked like last night, that is basically like you're adding a pitcher at the trade deadline and saying, hey, we're going all in for a World Series again this year. The Dodgers have kind of been a little bit lagging in terms of their usual standard this season, but if he's going to be that guy, then they have everything they need again.
And my poor Reds, man, they're just fading as they reach this end of the season. Their dreams of a playoff spot as the wild card is just taking another hit as they trail the Mets, who are 78 and 73, and I think they're leading the Chicago Cubs have won 87 games.
That's right.
How about those Cubbies? So they lead the wild card race, and then you've got the Mets, and they are followed by the Padres. The Padres actually have 82 wins, so they're actually ahead of the Mets yet. So the Mets right now have that final wild card spot, and they are 78 and 73. The Reds 75 and 76. They're fading. But
they had a real shot because the Mets struggled in the middle of the season. They are
an 8-game losing streak. They just got off of an 8-game losing streak.
Yeah, they struggled pretty significantly. They led the NL East for most of June, and they just completely collapsed. And so the Reds had an opportunity. The teams below them had an opportunity, and none of them seized it. The Reds, the Giants, the Cardinals, none of them really took advantage of the slide the Mets had. And so the Mets are probably going to back into a playoff spot, winning like 83 games. That's tough. It's tough for some of those teams that they had a real opportunity to do something this year and didn't get it done.
Yeah, they're 2-8 in their last 10 games, but during that span, Cincinnati goes 5-5, hit the Mendoza line, and even the Cubs only 6-4, Cardinals 4-6. So no help there at all. Indiana hosting Illinois. The number 9 Illini come into Bloomington's Memorial Stadium to take on the number 19 Indiana Hoosiers, who Las Vegas has put out as a 4.5-point favorite. Some people have said 5.5, but I've seen 4.5 every time, which I was a little impressed by that. I'm like, oh, that's a little confidence. That's more than a field goal, which your home field usually gives you. And that's still close, but that tells me Vegas has the confidence in Indiana here.
Yeah, I mean, because Vegas is going off mostly the computers, and the computers like Indiana a lot right now. We talked about USC, how they're kind of a darling of the computers. Indiana is the same way. SP Plus, which is kind of the gold standard of the computer rankings. They do kind of. They have one type of ranking where there's some preseason expectations baked in, and then they have one that they call resume only, where it's just what you've done on the field this season, and the preseason expectations kind of wash out by week 6. So there's still right now in their regular rankings some preseason expectations baked in, but in resume only what you've done on the field. Indiana is 5th right now in those rankings by the computer. So the computers like them a lot. Again, people are like, the national pundits kind of like, well, who have you played? You don't play anyone. But one feature of being a good team, and we talked about this ad nauseum last year, was you beat up on teams that are worse than you. You don't mess around. You don't say, well, we're going to win this game by 7 and you survive in advance. No, you go out there and win by a bunch. And Indiana did that against Kennesaw State. They did it against Indiana State. And they kind of kept themselves from doing it against Old Dominion. They were obviously the better team that entire game, and they just didn't cash in the red zone. And then it turns out Old Dominion is a lot better than people thought. And so the computers really do like Indiana, and Vegas obviously uses the computers to make a lot of their lines. And so I think that is probably about right. I think the Indiana being at home, being just slightly more talented, is probably the favorite in this game, but you got to go do it on the field. And I think that we're going to find out a lot about Indiana and where this team can go this week. I mean, Omar Cooper said it right after the Indiana State game. He said it in the post-game press conference for the Indiana State game. This game is going to determine where Indiana goes this year, how far they can go, what they can do. And I thought that was really impressive. They know what's in front of them, and they're going to be ready for it, I think.
He's not lying. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. And you mentioned those SP Plus rankings, and I saw that yesterday, and I retweeted one actually that Bill Connolly put out. Texas Tech is at the top, but after that, the Big Ten has 5 of the top 7 teams in this, with Oregon at number 2, followed by Penn State. Indiana's at 5th. USC is 6th. Washington is 7th. Then you drop down a little bit, and you've got the Illini at 13th and Nebraska 14th. So there you go. That's a big showing by the Big Ten because, as I pointed out in my retweet, these metrics don't have conference bias to them. Even though the Big Ten is up there highly, there's no, oh, well, SEC thinking and all that. They're blind. It's a blind draw, basically.
Yeah. And I do think that the Big Ten, there have been some teams in the Big Ten that have looked really, really impressive this year. The SEC had kind of that thing going last year where they had some teams that played really well against bad teams at the beginning of the season that just totally erased some bad teams. At the beginning of the season, Tennessee comes to mind where they just completely destroyed their first couple opponents. Ole Miss was the same way, where when they played a team that was not on their talent level, they just destroyed them. And so that is one feature of a good team. But the other feature of a good team is going out and being consistent throughout the season. And Ole Miss especially was not last year. And so we'll see whether these Big Ten teams that are at the top of the rankings, where they destroyed some bad teams and things like that, can they do it consistently throughout the regular season, right? Can you go out and go 10-2, 9-3 with your only losses against high level competition? Because I think that's the thing that the SEC that got the SEC last year. And I hate to go back to last year because it was so obnoxious for so many months about the SEC going nuts. But it wasn't just that those teams went 9-3. If they had gone 9-3 with all three of their losses to top 10 opponents, okay, fine, I understand the case you're making. But it was 9-3 with losses to bad teams. Like we talked again about Alabama losing to Oklahoma, who went 6-6. Ole Miss losing to Kentucky, who went 4-8. Right, like it's South Carolina lost to LSU, who wasn't very good, and a couple other teams along the way. So it is one of those things where if you want, being a playoff team should mean you beat up on bad teams. You played well against the best teams on your schedule, and then you won all the games against the teams that are decent, but you're still better than. That should be a playoff resume if we can swing it. Obviously, you got to get 12 teams somehow, so sometimes other teams are going to get in there. But generally speaking, that should be the formula. And we'll see which of those Big Ten teams that have been really good at the beginning of the season, they've taken care of step one. Now you have to go continue doing as we get into conference play. So interested to see how that goes, because there's a lot of teams. Those teams are going to play each other, and we're going to see how good they really are.
Yeah, the Big Ten, I can't wait to see how it starts to trickle out, because I think this year there are a few teams that are better. I think there's a little more depth to the Big Ten than there was last year, but there's still it'll be interesting to see how that compares to the depth of the SEC as we get later into the season. Because I think that may be a surprising an answer for me, which I wasn't expected, but we shall certainly see. What are your thoughts heading into this weekend's game with the Illini?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing the offensive line for Indiana, both lines, but especially the offensive line. Illinois has a guy, Gabe Jackas, who is one of the better edge rushers in the country, defensive lineman in the country. I'm interested to see how Indiana is able to contain him. Their offensive line, we talked about it a lot during the offseason. They feel like they've upgraded it. It was their biggest problem at the end of last season against the best teams on their schedule. They feel like they're better now. Getting Drew Evans back was huge at guard. Illinois has a very good defensive line. Can you go out and really protect Fernando Mendoza, give him time to throw? Does Fernando Mendoza, if he doesn't have time to throw, if there are some times where he is under pressure, does he revert to some of the bad habits he had at Cal, where he holds the ball and maybe he throws into coverage? Is that something that he has been able to kind of work through? I'm interested to see that, because I think this game is going to be won in the trenches. Brett Bielema, Illinois' coach, is a guy who loves to win with just kind of bullying you. Obviously, Illinois is a little bit more explosive than that. They can do different things, but if Brett Bielema had his way, that's the way they would win. I'm interested to see, because they will probably try it against Indiana. I don't know if that'll work, and we'll have to see, but I'm interested to see on both lines, because on the defensive line, Illinois returns five starting offensive linemen. That was a big part of why people thought Illinois could be good this year, was they return all five of their starting offensive linemen from what was a pretty good offensive line last year. That's not the kind of continuity you ever see in college football anymore. And so can Indiana get pressure with a defensive line that's been rebuilt? You had the 30 tackles for loss in the last two games. Can you do that against Illinois, a team that is much, much better along their front? So trenches. That's where I'm looking, and I think we'll have an answer pretty early in this game on who's going to be successful down there.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Indiana has not been pushed in that regard, but ironically, Indiana has probably the second most starts on the offensive line. Illinois, their offensive line, I believe, has the most starts without question in the Big Ten, possibly in the country. As you mentioned, all those returners, and that is just great for continuity. We've seen that it's made a difference for Indiana in the run game, but don't forget, they're going to be without Lee Beebe, who, yeah, they've got Kalon Black and they've got Roman Hemby, and Martin has been stepping up, but make no mistake, Lee Beebe's a loss, man. That dude was bucking to be the best running back of the year for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, absolutely. He was. They all have good per carry averages, but Lee Beebe's was the best, 7.7 yards per carry. That's just not something you replace easily, right? I do think that they have the depth where they can absorb it, they can replace it as the season goes on. But this week it's going to be a little bit jarring not having him out there, because he was the best of the three that they've had this year in terms of down to down basis. And so you're going to see Roman Hemby has been a workhorse in the past. You might see a little bit more of that this week. I think you're going to see a lot of carries for him, a lot of carries for Kalon Black. And I think you're going to see some Kobe Martin carries as well. They like to kind of spread it around so their running backs are fresh in the fourth quarter. And Kobe Martin has not done much outside of that game against Indiana State yet. I think he's a very talented player, redshirt freshman. I think he will be a very good player. Is he ready for carries in a game of this magnitude? We'll have to see. That is a significant loss. I think there are people who are kind of writing that off as like, well, they have a couple other guys, but Lee Beebe is a very, very good player. And they blocked for him, to be clear, but he was a very good player. And that is a blow to the running backs room.
Absolutely. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Keeping up with the coverage there, and keep local papers alive. Appreciate you, brother. Where are you going to be this weekend?
I'll be in Bloomington. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. One of the best atmospheres in the history of that stadium, I think. So it should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. We'll see you then.
Absolutely, Jim. Thanks for having me on, as always.
Thank you. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Back with more right after these breaks.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouth-watering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. On this Wednesday, we've made it to the halfway point. Appreciate you being with us as always. Looking forward to Cal Neddenriep joining us from the Indy Star as the high school scene is getting into week 5. Isn't that crazy? But it is what it is. College game going into week 4, and the NFL going into week 3. Can the Colts get to 3-0 on this season? Well, that'll be fun. We'll talk to Matt Taylor tomorrow. Doug Bucshon joining us now from Orange and Blue News, the On3 outlet for the Illini. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I think I jumped in a little bit early here. But,
you know what? Early bird gets the worm sometimes. How's everything going over in Champaign?
Things are going well. You know, the football team's winning. They're 3-0, ranked number 9 in the country, 8 in the coaches poll. Sold out most of their games for the rest of the season. Looking forward to the trip over to Bloomington for IU this weekend. I think we're going to get a better feel for where the team kind of stands, where both teams kind of stand, really, considering the schedules so far. So things are looking good here in Champaign.
Yeah, no question. This is a make or break game for both teams in the regard of, especially for Indiana. They have to have this game because of impending games. After this game, they go to Iowa, then they go to Oregon, and then later on, you have to go to Penn State. So, but they also need to win this game because of all of the smack talk from last year. Oh, they didn't beat anybody. They didn't they didn't beat a ranked team, yada, yada. So this is the opportunity Indiana needs. They need to take care of business to kind of quash that and then take their chances out in Oregon and down at Penn State. But this is setting up to just be a fantastic game with two dynamic offenses. It's going to come down to the defense in both of these games, and I think that's where questions may lie for both teams. For Indiana, how solidly have they replaced some of the what they lost on the defensive line, because they're still solid at linebacker. They still have Mikael Kamara on the line, an All-American, and you've got D'Angelo Pons in the backfield there, an All-American. But that defensive line is still they haven't been tested yet. So that's going to be an interesting test for Indiana's D-line. And Fernando Mendoza, he's looked, to me, just looked better each week. And last week, even though it was against Indiana State, I get it. But he just looks sharp, and everything looks sharp. So that's from the Indiana side. What is the Illini shown their weakness to be so far?
Just consistency, and then starting slow. They started slow against Duke. Had a rough first half. Couldn't protect Altmaier in the first half. Duke had 4 sacks. Then they started slow again against Western Michigan. Couldn't run the ball. A lot of those inside zone and gap plays between the tackles were going nowhere in the first half against Western Michigan. Put it together in the second half. They saw something that they corrected, obviously, and I think it was an effort thing too. I think they went into that game looking ahead to Indiana, and started slow. And Brett Bielema really had a fit at halftime of the Western Michigan game, and kind of lit a fire under him, and played really well in the second half. And when you don't play your best game and you still win 38-0, I think you're a pretty good team. And that's what kind of happened to him on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And neither one of these teams have been tested with although Illinois did go down and play Duke. That's a road game. So that's a difficulty in and of itself there. I'm not sure Duke is showing to be as tough as we thought they might be, but that's neither here nor there. This is setting up to be an electric environment, sold out Memorial Stadium. To me, it's got to be Indiana's biggest home game since 1967, Doug. Doug Bucshon from Orange and Blue News with us, because they have had tons of top 5 teams in Memorial Stadium in that time, because they were part of the Big Ten East for a long time. So it was a running scheduled deal. Which top 5 team are they playing this year? But this is a time where, hey, Las Vegas has Indiana a 4.5-point favorite to win the game. So that's the difference. And that is what makes this game so big. And the fact of this is, for both teams, as I said, this is going to set them on the trajectory of a CFP season or not, because if Indiana loses this game, it's not that they can't make it, but you have those looming difficult road games yet to come up and the entire season. Same for Illinois. I don't think their schedule's quite as daunting, but they still have tough games to play, and it's a long way to go until the end of the season.
It is. They have USC for homecoming, and USC is looking like they're a little bit better than people thought they were going to be. They play at Washington, and Washington doesn't lose at home. They won every game at home last year. It's hard to beat.
Tough place to play. Tough place to play. And of course, they have Ohio State at home, the number 1 team in the country. So their schedule, as you said, is not as daunting as Indiana. When we looked at it preseason, it was a workable schedule. You're looking at 9-3 season, 8-4 worst case scenario maybe for Illinois when they're coming off such a good season last year. But this is a huge game, and then they brought up yesterday, and Brett Bielema talked about this is the first time these two teams have played as ranked opponents, both ranked since 1950, and that's kind of the storyline there to me is the maybe a little bit of the changing of the guard in the Big Ten Conference, even though the top teams, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, are still sitting there at the top, but it shows the competitiveness of the conference, the depth of the conference, and I think it shows a leveling of the playing field a little bit where you can, like Indiana, you can rebuild your roster pretty quick. I mean, you go out and get some guys from the transfer portal, as Kurt Cignetti did, brought some guys from James Madison, other guys in the portal, Mendoza from Cal. You can have a competitive team lickety split, and that's what they did. Illinois has done it a little bit different. I think they've built it over time. It's Brett Bielema's 5th year, and they got some depth about the program. They've retained their own players, so they've done it a little bit different than Indiana. But both teams are upstart programs in the Big Ten with something to prove on Saturday, and that's kind of the major storyline to me is how these two teams are kind of crashing the party in the Big Ten Conference. Absolutely, and Illinois is I don't trying to be this year's Indiana per se, the surprise team, but they're not catching anybody by surprise after a 10-win season last year. So, but they have been thought of by a lot of people to be that team to make it into the CFP this year, a new team. But this game right here is going to make a huge difference. Not that it can't be overcame, like I said, but it's just perception that goes into people's minds a lot of the times. But man, I think this is going to be a fun game. Could be a high scoring game, Doug. Doug Bucshon from Orange and Blue News with us.
Well, what I've learned over the years is if you think it's going to be a high scoring game, then it ends up being a defensive struggle, and then vice versa.
Exactly.
So who knows? I mean, like you said, Indiana have played a soft schedule so far. Illinois played at Duke, but Duke's probably not turning out to be quite as good as we thought they were going to be. It's just hard to say. They could cancel each other out. Now, Indiana is explosive. Mendoza can throw the ball vertically. They have big, fast wide receivers. They protect him well in the pocket, and I think they can move the ball up and down the field. Now, Illinois is a little bit different. Illinois likes to do it in a little more physical way. They like to grind it out on the ground. Altmaier is not a guy that's going to throw it 50 times a game. They will air it out if they have to, if they don't get the ground game going. And Barry Lundy's not going to keep running it into the heart of the Indiana defense if it's not going anywhere. But it's a little bit contrast in styles, I think. So we're going to see what kind of wins out: physicality versus a little more explosiveness on the part of Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana has kind of picked up the pace on that side of things as these three games went along. And the last game, of course, I know it was against a very outmatched Indiana State team, but things just looked crisper for Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, he found Omar Cooper Jr. quite frequently as they connected 4 times for touchdown passes. The week before that, it was Elijah Surratt that he connected 3 times with for touchdown passes. And then there's EJ Williams out there as well. And some other guys are going to have to step up. Huge loss for Indiana as they lose Lee Beebe, one of their top running backs already for the season. Indiana's fortunate they have some depth there at that position with Kalon Black returning and with the addition of Roman Hemby. But, man, depth is always much better to have some depth.
Not just that, but the running backs, they can start to drop like flies. You lose one, and now you're worried about losing. If you lose another one, what happens? Illinois was kind of in the same boat last week. Aiden Lafreux, who's their starting tailback, didn't play, had a lower body injury. We won't know until Thursday what his status is going to be for Saturday. I think he's going to be okay. Brett Bielema said on Monday that he's going to practice maybe today, maybe tomorrow, and should be available. Illinois kind of plays a three-headed monster at tailback with Lafreux, Caden Fagan, a big, a power back, 6'4", 250, and then Khalil Valentine, sophomore, who's really showed something this year. We always knew that he was an explosive runner, a quick twitch kind of kid. When he gets out in the open field, he can outrun guys. But he's taken a big step this year with his vision and ability to run off tackle, and he's a little stronger and finishes his run. So a little bit in the same boat with the running backs. Like I said, if you lose one back, Illinois saw this a couple years ago. I think they were down to like one scholarship back 2 years ago, and they can start to drop, and you certainly don't want to lose a guy like Beebe.
There are only two teams with that are in the top 10 in scoring offense and defense through week 3. Nebraska, one of those. Indiana, one of those. Brigham Young, the other. But the Big Ten with 2 of those 3 schools. But if this were to hold true, this would show or follow a pattern by Indiana last year as having been so good on both sides of the ball. I was wondering as far as the defensive line, because like I said, they replaced a lot. James Carpenter and CJ West, Linnell Carr Jr., they lost a lot of talent on that line. And we weren't sure how well they were going to replace it early on. They gave up in the first game a couple of 75-plus yard runs to Old Dominion's quarterback, who Old Dominion turned out to be a better team than some of us thought they might be after their win over Virginia Tech. But, it's going to be interesting to see how both of these defenses play against each other. Illinois, a little more balanced, although Indiana has rushed for 300 yards in each of its first 3 games. And you got Fernando Mendoza back there throwing for chunk yardage as well.
Yeah, for Illinois, they've been kind of a bend but don't break defense here early on. They have some good players. They have, Gabe Ackus, an edge rusher who's really physical bull rusher, probably one of the best edge rushers in the Big Ten. Xavier Scott, a hybrid nickel corner player, really good. Matthew Bailey is safety, but they've given up yards, but they haven't given up a lot of points. And you worry about that going into a game against Indiana in the Big Ten, because Indiana they're not going to be like Western Michigan. They're going to finish drives, and so you can't keep relying on turnovers. You can't keep relying on goal line stands when you enter conference play against a quality opponent like Indiana. Like I said, they've given up yards, but they haven't given up points. They shut out Western Michigan. They kind of shut down Duke in the second half in that game, But like I said, you can't keep giving up these yards and explosive plays and expect to keep Indiana out of the end zone.
What has been the thought by the Illini fans in the camp heading into this game? What's been the pulse?
Well, I think they're holding their breath like everybody else. They know they have a good team. The fans are excited, of course. They're buying tickets. Champagne's buzzing. But it's like everybody else, especially the national media. It's gonna take something special for Illinois and Indiana to make true believers out of people. They look at the history of these programs and it may be fair or unfair. They look at the history of the programs and maybe they don't pay a lot of attention to them and they don't watch them play, and they think it's Illinois and Indiana. It's not Michigan and Ohio State. So I think fans are still waiting to become true believers that both of these programs are really sitting there. Illinois number 9 in the country. That's rare air for Illinois. They haven't been there in a long time. I mean, and Indiana's 19, but 3-0 college football playoff team last year. So people are just kind of waiting and seeing, hey, is this for real? And they want to believe, and they're buying tickets. But just like the national media, I think that they're not quite true believers yet.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned now the importance for both teams of this game, and you just touched on another reason, because whoever loses this game is going to kind of not be forgotten, but not looked at by a lot of the national pundits. Are like, yeah, okay, well, you lost your chance there, so we're going to put you aside, and now we're going to continue to prop this team up, whomever that ends up being. But that's going to be a kind of a huge advantage at this point, because it's good to get your propped ups going about right now.
Yeah, I think they're going to, whoever, if somebody loses bad in this game, they're going to say, see, I told you so. It's Illinois football. Or, see, I told you so. It's Indiana football. But if they both play well and it's a competitive game and a close game, I don't think you'll see them drop all that much in the eyes of the media and of the fans. But a poor performance is going to be one of those I told you so moments for either one of these teams.
Doug, you guys at Orange and Blue, Doug Bucshon from Orange and Blue News, the out on 3 Illini outlet, moved over to On 3. How's that been for you guys, man?
It's been great. On 3's got such a national presence, a little bit different than what we're used to. So many different national writers that cover high school football, with a lot of different people. So it's been great. I think we've got a good response from the fans. It was seamless transition, and our content is pretty much the same as it's always been, but it's enhanced, by all of these national writers and the attention that we're getting from the On 3 network. So it's been great so far.
Yeah, I agree, man. What Shannon Terry is continuing to do there is recently just adding the Field of 68 to that on the college basketball side, and bringing in a lot of bigger name national writers, in addition to the great local coverage that I know you guys are providing to the Illini fans, and the guys at the Hoosier.com are supplying to Indiana fans. But it is without question the go-to place, man. It's just been phenomenal to see that grow, and that's great timing. Is I don't think college sports, while it's at this weird place with all that's going on with the money being made by players and all that increasing nonstop, it's still college football is picked up right where it left off last season after a tremendous season, with great games already in the early part of this season for the games that have been scheduled. I've already enjoyed it just as much, and it's like, man, it keeps on going. It's awesome.
It's never been more popular. I keep waiting for the doom and glimmers to, NIL is going to ruin college football. It hasn't, and it's not going to. And I think that's one thing I really love about our network on the On 3 network is we deal in reality. We're not holding on to the past. NIL and money is a big part of this sport. It's a huge part of the recruiting process. And we embrace that a little bit, and we start asking those questions. And I think in recruiting, we've covered recruiting for 15 years. Nobody wants to ask a kid or a player, how much did NIL impact your decision to go to this school, or how much did it impact your decision to stay here and not go someplace else? Well, that's the reality of college sports now. And different programs are managing it a different way. At Illinois, they're not like a program that's going to throw $4 or $5 million at a high school kid. They're a program that's going to retain a kid like Luke Altmaier, who had SEC offers in the offseason to jump ship and transfer. A kid like Gabe Ackus, who could have declared for the NFL draft, but when he started weighing his costs and benefits of staying or going, and that revenue sharing money was coming, and there was NIL money for him, he made the decision to stay instead of gambling on the NFL. And that's kind of how Brett Bielema has approached it, is retaining guys. Yes, showing high school kids the possibility of what you can make if you come to Illinois, but not really throwing a huge amount of money like they did at Michigan for their quarterback, that kind of thing. But as I said, our network, we deal with reality. We tell the fans the truth. We tell them what's going on in college football, and it has never been more popular. The TV ratings are great. The stadiums are selling out. So dim and glimmers can take their ball and go home, because college football is in a great place right now.
It certainly is. Doug Bucshon from Orange and Blue News. the Illini outlet for On 3. Appreciate you, my friend.
Anytime. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, buddy. We'll see you on Saturday.
You will.
Doug Bucshon from Orange and Blue News. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with that and much more after these messages.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Glad to have you along. Looking forward to Kyle Neddenriep from Indy Star joining us as high school. The high schools are in week 5. Man, that's the halfway point of their season. It's crazy. Already gone. Look forward to talking to him as things start to pick up now. Who's doing what? Who's going where? As they keep battling from all around the state. That's the great thing. Different classes, you've got teams that are popping from Evansville, from Fort Wayne, from the region, and, of course, the bigger boys from in and around the Indianapolis area. But who is going to maintain that? I think Carmel lost to a Kentucky team last week. I don't know who that was. Forgot if that was Trinity or St. X or one of the other Catholic schools, but certainly was one of that, because that's in Kentucky, and football is kind of dominated by the Catholic schools. Not the case in the state of Indiana. It's a very different deal. It's the public schools for the most part, not always. You've got cathedrals and of the world and whatnot, but it usually is. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Appreciate you, man, with our schedule being a little wonky today. He moved around for us a little bit. How have you been?
Good, no problem. Yeah, doing well.
You're about to reach the halfway point, man. Does it feel like it?
Not really, but yeah, we're going to have some mid-season reports to do next week, and hard to believe we're to week 5 already with this. But yeah, I know we talk every week. It seems to go so fast once it gets started.
It doesn't stop, man. It doesn't stop, and it's been a fun season. Across the board, whether it's the NFL, the college, and even high school. It's just been a fun. It seems like all of sports has elevated here lately. The NFL games are all great. So many great games, which, boy, back in the day, it seemed like there was a lot more blowouts, and it's not happening as much anymore.
No, I had a fun game. The Mudsaw game, Fishers and HSE, was there were 10,000 people there the other night. So But yeah, I mean, the game wasn't as crazy. Sometimes those games are crazy, overtime games or right down to the wire. That one wasn't. It was 28-16, but the atmosphere was top notch. It was probably the best, in a series of great crowds. That one was probably the best of all. It was sensational. But yeah, well, there's a lot of great games throughout the weekend. Really, I caught some of the college and NFL, but yeah, high school's really produced some good ones. We should have another good week coming up this week.
Well, where are you going to be first? Because that's kind of tells us how things start.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the Brownsburg. I haven't seen Brownsburg yet this season. They play Fishers, which I did see last week. Fishers coming off that big win against Hamilton Southeastern. Brownsburg had a really crazy. They beat Avon 55-47 and gave up a lot of yards, obviously a lot of points in that game. So kind of curious how they look against the Fishers offense that's probably as good as Avon's, if not better. In some ways, they're probably not as big up front as Avon, but their quarterback play is really good, and they have a couple, probably three really good skill position players who can play for about anybody. So I'm curious how that game goes. I don't see Fishers being able to stop Brownsburg, but that game could be pretty high scoring and interesting, I think. Some of the other good games, I would say, Center Grove goes out of state to play Trotwood Madison out of Ohio, but they are a team that gave them a little trouble last year. Center Grove won that game by 3 points. So that could be a challenge, I think, for Center Grove team that's a little bit beat up in some key spots. Westfield HSC will be a good one. 2 top 10 teams in 6A. Warren Ben Davis, always a good rivalry game. That one's on the dock. And then New Pal, Pendleton Heights, I think, has some intrigue. New Pal just keeps rolling over everybody, but Pendleton Heights is 4-0. And they're 4A, so it's a different class. But with New Pal being 5A this year, but that game's got some intrigue to it as well.
And I like the fact that especially once you get out of 6A, it's a great mixture of teams from around the state, whether it's Evansville, it's Fort Wayne, it's the region, or even down in Santa Claus, Indiana, where the Fighting Sicilies are the new #1 team at Heritage Hills. How about that?
Yeah, they took the top spot. Chittard lost last week to Cathedral. On my ballot, I had Heritage Hills there anyway. I had Chittard too. I kept them too because I don't think losing by a field goal to Cathedral is anything, that serious. They actually led most of that game, so that would have been a really good win for Chittard. But I think those two teams have kind of separated a little bit, in 4A. I think those, that could be a matchup we would see down the road, and could be a fantastic game between those state powers. But Heritage Hills hasn't really even had any. I think all their games have been decided by running clocks so far. They beat Southridge, which Southridge is always good. And they beat them 45-0 last week. So, I don't know if anybody on that schedule. You look. Although Gibson Southern, I will say they're a 3A team, but also a very, very good team. So, and those teams used to be sectional rivals. Normally,
what would the over/under in that game be?
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a phenomenal game. Kyle Soakland probably will be covering that for Evansville. But that would be a fun one to be at. That's actually next week, so we'll be we'll be tracking how that score goes. But Heritage Hills is just they have so many players back from last year. And even against Gibson Southern, I think will be significantly favored. I would think going into that game. So I think the biggest test out there for them is probably Chittard. And we wouldn't see that game until probably the semi-state round, I believe. I have to look at the bracket again, but yeah, I mean, there's other teams out there. Wrights, they're in 4A. Pendleton Heights, I mentioned, is undefeated so far. Roncalli, I think, is a team that will continue to get better throughout the year. The south side of that 4A bracket's always really deep, and it's been, the North has kind of been down in 4A or gets beaten in the championship, I would say, most times, but there's some good teams up there too, like East Noble, who made it last year, Mishawaka. So that 4A is a pretty interesting class this year, I'd say.
And then I saw that Carmel went down and lost to Louisville Trinity, 48-17. 41-28 rather. Obviously Trinity, one of those teams in Kentucky that year in, year out is one of the teams to watch for a state title.
Yeah, Carmel had a bad stretch from it looked like about middle of the second quarter to mid third, where they just had turnovers and gave up big plays, and all of a sudden it turned into kind of what was a really close game. Then they're playing catch up the rest of the game, and so the score, in some ways was that bad, in some ways wasn't. It was a bad stretch of about 10 minutes. That was just kind of a disaster. So you can't turn the ball over against a team like that, especially when you go down there to play, and that's what happened. So their overall statistics from that game still were pretty good. As far as offense goes, they put up a lot of yards and against a really good Trinity team. So I think they stacked up pretty well. Just way too many mistakes. I'm still, I didn't really dock them as far as where I ranked them this week, because I think they're still really, really good. But yeah, I mean, Trinity's just kind of a different type of team. I mean, they're very similar to the top of 6A, I'd say, in Indiana. I mean, I think it's a good measuring stick when you kind of look at it that way, because some of these out-of-state teams you don't know for sure what you're looking at, but Trinity you do, because a lot of these teams, these 6A powers, play them. Carmel plays them. They played them often over the years. Other cathedrals played them. There's other in-state teams that played them pretty regularly. I think Center Grove played them recently. So you do have a good barometer of kind of where you're at when you play Trinity. And usually, Trinity's probably going to get the better end of it, but sometimes, our teams beat them too. Warren Central, I think, when they had David Bell, went down there and beat them in a really great game. So yeah, it's a good test for Carmel, I think. And now they come back home and should win. They play Columbus North, which is having a good season, and then North Central, and then they get into that last part where they play Ben Davis and Warren towards the end of the year. So some tougher tests upcoming, but yes, I'm still very high on what Carmel's done this year.
Absolutely. What are you looking forward to this weekend besides the game you'll be covering?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's a mid-season sort of gauge, I would say. And, other than the games I mentioned, there's some other, decent ones out there. One of the small school games that we'll actually be at Friday, Lapel and Indian Creek. Indian Creek is 4-0 and ranked number 9 in 3A this week. And then Lapel is 3rd in 2A. So both teams undefeated. Kind of interesting, interesting non-conference game this time of year. Indian Creek comes back the following 2 weeks, and this new conference is called the Hoosier Legends, and they play Tri-West and Triton Central, which are both really good teams as well, top 10 teams, 3A and 2A respectively, the next 2 weeks. So kind of an interesting game, a non-conference game at this point in the year, but should be fantastic. We'll have coverage of that game as well. So in addition to the large school games we always try to cover, we'll have coverage of that also.
They are everywhere. He is what's the word I'm looking for? Omnipresent. Kyle Neddenriep for the Indy Star, baby. He is the man. Appreciate you as always, and hope you have a great rest of your week.
You bet. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow, keeping up with all his coverage, and be a subscriber to the Indy Star. Keep local papers alive. More coming up. Zach Browning will join us from thehoosier.com on 3 as we'll talk more about this weekend's electric matchup as number 9 Illinois comes to Bloomington to take on Indiana as the first important game in chasing a back-to-back CFP appearance by Indiana and a first for the Illini. We'll be back with more from Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. You're halfway through the week. Zach Browning from thehoosier.com on 3 joins us as Indiana facing Illinois in a top 10 matchup. Biggest game since 1960s, home game since 1967. I've been calling this, Zach, because it is. This is not the highest ranked opponent Indiana has had, but it is definitely the highest ranked opponent that Indiana has a chance to beat, that we not only have considered them a chance to beat, Vegas has put them as a 4.5-point favorite to win this game. And the importance of the trajectory towards another CFP appearance cannot be overlooked. It starts and ends almost here, and it's probably disingenuous to say that with so many games left, but we also know the difficulties that lie ahead for Indiana with road games at Oregon, at Penn State, at Iowa. So this is a kind of a, you can't really call it a must-win game, but it's a game they need to win for a lot of different reasons.
Well, and that's exactly what Jake Butt said yesterday on the Big Ten Network. He called it a mock play-in game, and that is kind of sort of what this game is for both Indiana and Illinois. You look at both of these two teams. If Illinois wins, they set themselves up to continue to be ranked inside the top 10 and continue to kind of push forward to being one of those 12 teams in the college football playoff come the end of the year. If you're Indiana, you kind of hit the nail on the head, Jim. This is one of those that you kind of have to win. It's not a must win, but it's a need to win kind of thing. It's one of those scenarios because if you look ahead, you're looking at road against Oregon, road against Penn State. Those are tough games. If you lose this game, you put yourself in a position to where you're going to have to go out and beat an Oregon or a Penn State on the road if you want to make the college football playoff. So the easiest way to not have to go out on the road and beat the Nittany Lions or beat the Ducks is just to win at home, take care of business. Again, Indiana is favored. So just go out there, take care of business against Illinois. And again, the matchup, it's historic. Obviously, you mentioned since 1967. These two teams have played once when they've both been ranked in their 74 previous meetings. This is a set of programs in Indiana and Illinois that this matchup just kind of feels weird, Jim, because this isn't Michigan versus Ohio State. This isn't a top 20 matchup between them. This is, Oregon and Penn State, that's next weekend. This weekend, it's Indiana and Illinois. Indiana still has the most losses in the history of the FBS. Illinois hasn't had their first 10-win season in like 2 decades last year. So these are two teams that are not used to being in the college football spotlight. And this weekend, that's exactly where they are. It could very well be the most intriguing, the best, whatever you want to call it. I know there's no game day, there's no big noon kickoff or anything like that, but it could very well be the biggest game of the weekend in college football.
And actually, it might be better that you don't have any of that stuff in town this weekend, because it is going to be just everyone locked in on this game. You are with the 7:30 night game. You get a lot of extra tailgating time. So The fans should be good and primed by kickoff when kickoff rolls around. And I don't expect, I think that they're going to fill this stadium and they're going to be loud. This should be an electric atmosphere, one that we haven't seen. That's another thing, an atmosphere that we haven't seen. That's because of the importance of this game.
I mean, if you think back to last year, Maryland had a good atmosphere. That was when the string of really good crowds at Memorial Stadium kind of started. It was raining, though. It was it was an afternoon kickoff. It wasn't completely full. Washington sort of comparable because it was also a red out. That was packed, but Indiana, Washington last year and Illinois this year, obviously Washington wasn't a top 10 team last year. There's really nothing comparable to last year. Night game, prime time against a top 10 team. This will be the best atmosphere, the biggest home game in Curt Cignetti's time at Indiana. And obviously Cignetti is 11-0 with the Hoosiers at home, which is a program record. So there's really nothing comparable from an atmosphere standpoint, which it kind of excites everybody. And I'm interested to see how the atmosphere feels and how it looks, how it compares to, obviously, Indiana went to Columbus last year. Obviously, it's not going to live up to the shoe. The shoe can fit nearly twice as many people as a Memorial Stadium. But just kind of the loudness, the atmosphere, the kind of expectations before the game surrounding the tailgate field, surrounding the people walking into Memorial Stadium. I'm interested to see how that feels and how that compares to when we went to the shoe last year to cover Indiana versus Ohio State, or when we went to South Bend to cover the College Football Playoff game between Indiana and Notre Dame. So I'm interested to see how it compares. Obviously, there's not going to be any light show. It's a red out, and the towels will be back in full force. I'm interested to see just kind of how it feels in Bloomington, not only during game time, leading up to kickoff, but just throughout the day. Is there a little bit of anticipation? Are there some tangible butterflies floating around the tailgate fields and floating around the city earlier that morning? I'm interested to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, Brett Bielema and Curt Cignetti were complimentary of each other, as they should be, both very, very successful coaches. Brett Bielema talked about Indiana's complementary football, and by that he means they are doing everything well. They're doing well in special teams. They're playing well on defense right now, and of course the offense is really starting to click. Then they talked about their clock usage as well. So a lot of things for them to look out for.
Yeah, and even Curt Cignetti, he doesn't give out a ton of compliments, but he did say that Brett Bielema is a great coach. They have a great football team over there. He kind of compared, Curt Cignetti did, Illinois to Indiana as far as they're a veteran group with a lot of good returners. They made some dabbles into the transfer portal to kind of fill up some holes and plug some holes, but overall they're a veteran group that knows how to win and knows what is expected of them, and that's what Curt Cignetti said on Monday. But the similarities between these two teams, I mean, it's obvious. They're right there in front of you. These are two teams that have never really been that good at football. Obviously, now they're kind of trending and want to continue to trend to being good at football. Both of these two teams feature quarterbacks that are two of the higher paid quarterbacks, not only in the country, but in the Big Ten. And Luke Altmaier and Fernando Mendoza, two guys with NFL hopes and NFL dreams. Maybe even, if not this season, next season. These are two head coaches that are both entertaining in front of a microphone at times. They're two head coaches that have won plenty of coaching awards. Obviously, Curt Cignetti swept the coaching awards last season. So the symmetry and the kind of connections and the resemblance between both of these two teams, it's really uncanny. This is, I mean, Illinois all preseason, even leading up into this game, has been called the Indiana version of 2025. So there's just so many similarities, so many things you can compare between these two teams. It's interesting for Curt Cignetti and the Hoosiers. It's as close to as playing a mirror of yourself as they're probably going to get. There's probably not another team in the country, specifically in the Big Ten, that can mirror Indiana as much. And I think that's the important part, Jim. This is – fair is not the right word, but this is the most honest test that Indiana will see and has seen in the Curt Cignetti era. Because if you think back to last season, you're thinking of Ohio State and Notre Dame. Those were your two biggest challenges. Those teams were better than Indiana. Let's just say it how it is. Those two teams are the final two teams left in the country. Those teams were better than Indiana. Everybody else Indiana played last year just wasn't as good as the Hoosiers were. There was no team that was as good as Indiana on that level playing field like Illinois is. So this will be the
truest and most honest test of Curt Cignetti's IU team so far during his tenure.
Without question, and it again a unique opportunity. There's been so many firsts already in the very, very short Curt Cignetti era, but yet another one comes. As when's the last time Indiana, or have they ever? I guess you'd have to go back to '67, beaten a top 10 team. Period. But in Bloomington at home. That's some rare air there. I would imagine we'd have to go back at least to 1967, and I don't even know the games back then, but I know that there were some higher ranked Big Ten teams. But this is just an opportunity to continue to do things, and Indiana is still not getting the national respect as, let's say, Illinois. A lot of the pundits from the early onset of the season had seen Illinois as one of the 4 Big Ten teams. I call them the Big Four because you would expect to get 4 teams into the CFP, but Indiana's, you say, not so fast, my friend. So that's going to be a telltale sign right there.
And that's where the interesting thing kind of comes into play. Yes, Indiana is favored. I think the line the last time I checked when I went to bed last night was 5.5. It's up to 5.5 from starting at 4.5. So while Vegas, the odds, the betting, slightly in favor of Indiana, if you look at the continuation of a lot of these national peoples, whoever it is, a lot of these national guys still have Illinois as either one of those last teams into the college football playoff or one of those first couple of teams out of the college football playoff come the end of the season. And to me, what that says is those national guys that have Illinois so close to the college football playoff believe that Indiana is going to lose this game and believe that Illinois will beat Indiana on Saturday in Bloomington. If you're going to have Illinois as one of the first 4 teams out of the college football playoff right now, if you're going into this weekend still projecting Illinois to be one of the first 4 teams out or even make the college football playoff, that is assuming that they beat Indiana. So I'm curious what would happen and what the shakeup will be as far as the national perception is and kind of where Indiana would find themselves in these college football playoff predictions should they go out and beat Illinois on Saturday. Because at that point, Jim, if you're Indiana, you're a win against Iowa away from having a very, very strong case to being included in the 12-team field, even if you lose to Penn State and Oregon. So this is again, borderline mock play-in game, borderline playoff game for Indiana and Illinois. And Indiana probably has a little bit less of a margin for error just because of those tough road games in October and November against Penn State and against Oregon. Illinois still gets USC at home. That should be a theoretical win for Illinois to help bolster the resume. And then they get Ohio State at home too, which obviously Ohio State's really good. But if you're thinking about a resume boosting win, you'd rather have it at home than on the road if you're Illinois. So this will be interesting. Again, it's basically a mock play-in. It's as close as you can get to a college football playoff game in September as you really can get.
Absolutely, and I'm trying to look on the BetMGM line to get the line for this game to see if it has moved, but I quickly did notice that Iowa, Indiana's next opponent, is just a 2.5-point favorite at Rutgers. Rutgers has improved their play, and Iowa has not exactly shown they've just created no separation offensively after they brought in a quarterback that threw for over 10,000 yards.
Yeah, they are really, really good. I mean, it's one of those things where they weren't necessarily super high on anybody's radar coming into the season, kind of middle of the pack. But you look around the Big Ten even, there's a lot of talented teams. Northwestern played Oregon close for about a quarter and a half last week. Obviously, what USC is doing with Jordan Mayava. Jordan Mayava I've seen on a lot of way too early, week 4 Heisman type of lists, somewhere in that top 10, somewhere in that top 15. Jordan Mayava is making his case that he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten, which is not something that many people predicted coming into the season. You look at Michigan State, they've been up and down a little bit. That's kind of the story of Aiden Childs throughout his career, but a big win against Boston College in overtime. They haven't looked great in stretches, but Aiden Childs, Indiana saw it last year. Indiana didn't trail until Aiden Childs put up the first 2 scores of the game on the Hoosiers in East Lansing. So around the Big Ten, there's good teams. I'd say there's less great teams than you would kind of expect, but there's definitely some good teams around the Big Ten. And it's interesting. And you see the Nebraska win last season is the highest ranked win. That was not technically, Nebraska was ranked in the AP poll that week, not necessarily the coaches poll. So it's interesting there. And then obviously the Penn State game back in 2020. The thing that I keep bringing up with that is there was no fans. There was no red out. There was no 52,000 towels that are going to be waving around like there are on Saturday. Obviously that Penn State game, it was crazy. Michael Penix did what he did.
That was the Michael Penix game, people.
There was no fans. That's the issue. This weekend, there's going to be 52,000 people there, majority in red with white towels waving. It's going to be loud. I think it will be a fun atmosphere, one of the best in a lot of our lifetimes in Bloomington.
Zach Browning from thehoosier.com on 3 with us right now. And yeah, the environment should just be spectacular. And looking forward to that. As I look down the BetMGM lines, the Illini still a 4.5-point underdog. Interesting to me is the over and under at 52.5. I'm thinking I could see a few more points scored because I think one of these teams is going to score in the 30s. And of course that could easily still be the same if the other team has less, but I don't know if Indiana's defense has shown me yet that they can, I don't want to say stop Illinois because I don't expect that per se, but Illinois has got a very balanced offense as well. They run the ball as well as throw the ball with Luke Altmaier. I don't think their numbers haven't been as eye-popping as Indiana's have been, although the talent level of the opponent has something to do with that. But Duke is not as good as people as we thought that they might be, and that was on the road. So you add that into it. So it's going to be a that's why they play the games, first of all. But I from the very beginning, I've seen Indiana as winning this game. Nothing has changed my mind on that yet. I just think that Indiana, to me, Fernando Mendoza really took a step last week. Everything just looked crisp, clean. His throws were darts. And I know that they weren't playing the New England Patriots or anything, but it was his throws. It was the routes. It was how everything was going. And I think that offense is just really gelling right now.
Yeah, Jim, I helped out. You had Doug on earlier from Orange and Blue News. I helped out with their behind enemy line story where I just pretty much helped them out with the story about Indiana. And they asked for my prediction in that story. And I said Indiana 31, Illinois 20 was my prediction. So I think Indiana wins by 11 thereabout. I do think it's close throughout. But
you're right on the under too, right on it.
What I keep coming back to with my prediction and my thoughts for this game is the fact that what Indiana's defense has struggled with so far this season is weirdness. You look at Old Dominion, they have a quarterback that runs essentially a 4.3, 4.4, 40-yard dash. Luke Altmaier is not going to be out there scrambling using his legs. He's not a guy that's a threat to run with the football, escape the pocket, stuff like that. You look at Kennesaw State, they will spread you out, play 5 wide, but push them all the way to the boundary. They're a weird offense. Signetti said it. And it kind of showed there was some awkwardness, the hurry-up tempo that kind of bugged Indiana a little bit. Illinois is not going to show that. But I think the fact that Luke Altmaier isn't necessarily a threat to use his legs, that helps Indiana. It helps a guy like Mikhail Kamara, who's going to be able to get into the backfield more and not have to worry about containing the quarterback, because it is a different mindset. You know this, Jim. It's a different mindset if you're rushing the passer and you have to keep in the back of my mind, oh, I have to keep contained. I have to keep strictly to my rush lane here around the edge. I can't make a swim move inside. That is different. It affects a guy that is rushing the passer. So I think with Indiana not having to worry as much about Altmaier scrambling to use his legs, that helps them be a little bit more creative, a little bit more aggressive with the blitzes that Bryant Haynes and the Indiana defense can dial up. So I think that Indiana's defense will have a much better game comparatively. Obviously, they were great last week against Indiana State, but compared to the competition, I think Indiana's defense will show up. And then offensively, Illinois' secondary doesn't stand out a ton to me outside of Gabe Jacas on the defensive line, who leads the Big Ten in sacks with 3.5 so far this season. Nobody really stands out as a oh my goodness, that's a game breaker, stay away from that guy type of guy on that Illini defense. And this Indiana offense, we said it all off season, we said it at the beginning of the season, Jim, and that hasn't changed. This team is more talented than last year's Indiana team, and I think this is one of those weeks we see that play out on the field.
Absolutely. Zach Browning from thehoosier.com on 3. Make sure you're a subscriber where you can get virtually everything in one place now. Check it out for $1 and 50% off the first years. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate you as always, man.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Always happy to be here.
Always a pleasure. Zach Browning joining us now. That's going to wrap it up for today. Of course, we're back tomorrow to do this all again. Matt Taylor, Dustin Schutte, Coach Griff. We're loaded the rest of the week, people, as we're heading down to a big doings in Bloomington this weekend. Appreciate you being with us as always. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.